It's just over 100 days until Election Day. And this morning, we have a new CBS News Battleground Tracker out that looks at the presidential race in 3 states heavily impacted by the coronavirus. That's Arizona, Texas, and Florida. Results show former Vice President Joe Biden will be competitive or better in all 3 states. Mr. Biden and President Trump are tied 46-46 in Arizona. President Trump is up 46-45 in Texas, and the former vice president is up by 6 points, 48-42 in Florida. CBS News Elections and Surveys Director Anthony Salvanto joins us from his home this morning in Westchester County, New York. Good morning, Anthony. Good to have you back.
Good morning, Margaret. Thank you.
So these states are heavily impacted by the virus itself, but is that influencing votes?
In a short answer, yes. And here's how. First, for some context, we asked people if their state reopened the economy too quickly or at the right speed, and a majority in all of them said they thought their state went too quickly. And then they also told us that they felt that the state did that because of pressure from the Trump administration. So you combine that with the president's low approval for handling COVID in these states, and he may be paying something of a political price, at least for the moment there. And then the other thing that struck us is that people in these states are concerned about getting COVID. And the more concerned that someone is, the more likely they are to say that they're voting for Joe Biden. So that's that personal connection we see in relation to the policy, and it's part of what's reshaping the Sun Belt and putting some of these states in play, maybe reshaping the overall electoral map, Margaret.
But what we've been hearing is that people are viewing this as sort of a vote against Trump rather than enthusiasm for Joe Biden. Is it enough for Biden to be this opposition candidate?
I think that's a central question to watch going forward. When you look at people who say that they are for Donald Trump, they are voting for him because they like him. But a comparatively larger percentage of Joe Biden's voters say that they're voting for Joe Biden to oppose Donald Trump, to vote against Donald Trump. So that's a dynamic, sort of a classic case in any election. Is it enough? We'll have to look and see. It also might translate into enthusiasm. The president has very enthusiastic supporters. And I would add this, too, as we start to look at the economy. Well, that's a place that the president still does at least relatively better on the economy than he does on handling COVID, Margaret.
Well, that's interesting because, of course, COVID and the economy are intertwined because the economic crisis has been triggered by that. You have this skyrocketing jobless rate. Joe Biden this week came out and made a big economic speech saying he can be the guy to best rebuild the economy. Can President Trump make the argument that is more convincing to voters that he can do what he did before and do it again, as he keeps saying on the campaign trail?
Well, so far in these states, slightly more feel that the president's policies would help the economy recover more so than hurt it or hinder it. So that's one thing, again, relative to his handling of COVID that is in his favor. And the other part of this is that, by and large, voters across the political spectrum say that the economy is still a top issue. Yes, COVID is very important for Democrats and their vote, for Republicans less so, but all partisans agree that the economy is important, so that as well could be central going forward, Margaret.
You're a data guy. There's not a lot of data about what it looks like to try to go out and vote in the middle of a pandemic. The president says he's against mail-in ballots. Do we know what this election is going to look like in terms of turnout?
Well, the indications we get from having watched these later primaries, where we saw people by the tens of thousands requesting mail ballots, turning in mail ballots, and then as polling places were forced to close because they couldn't find enough poll workers, well, that led to longer lines, people standing in line for hours in order to cast votes. If that happens again in November, and every indication is that it will, then the old line that it all comes down to turnout goes double or triple in these cases. I think it shifts the entire dynamic of this campaign and what happens if voters can't easily get access, can't easily get a mail ballot, can't easily get to a polling place. And I think as we watch the polls going forward, this is an election about intensity and access.